What's up, chat? We're back. It's Monday. We're talking about this weekend's Warhammer. How's it going, everybody? Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. We've got some exciting 40k to talk about today. A lot of GTs going down this weekend, including, but not limited to, the Battle Against Breast Cancer GT, which we streamed live on this channel. If you haven't gone and taken a look at that game, that event, we had a couple of absolutely insane games, which is super cool. Thanks to everybody who hopped in the stream over the course of the weekend. Thanks to everybody who supported the charity. Obviously, it was a charity event, so we're hoping that everyone would put their support towards them. I believe that the number was $12,000 raised by the GT by the end there. Aaron, the event organizer, said enough that they are going to do it again next year, which is exactly what we're looking for. But yeah, thanks to everybody who bought raffle tickets. Thanks to everybody who supported in that way. I am going to reset my viewer here so we can talk about some 40k lists. So I got home like 5 hours ago. So I have literally not had an opportunity to look at any of these lists. I don't know what I'm expecting, but I do think there are probably some trends I'm sure that we can kind of anticipate talking about it. How was my weekend? It was good. It was a good weekend. We had some good streams and stuff. Nurgle Mats in chat. Tabletop Live in chat. Saw you guys killing it over the weekend. I tuned in for as much of the coverage as I could. It seemed like some pretty sweet games, but I could not stick around. Unfortunately, obviously, there was some. There's some. I had some stuff going on. Cheers, dude. Butter Nage 4-1 Orc triple kill rig. Best he knows at Rumble. Hey, yeah, triple kill rig turns out real good, chat. We called it. We called it, and it's real good. We saw some suppressors over the weekend too. They were killing it too. A lot of the new units absolutely killing it. Yeah, a little busy. Just a little bit busy. All right, folks. Let's talk about some events. So we had a couple of big ones go down this weekend that I think everyone, the big one that we're excited to talk about, the Coventry GT 3-day. I don't know. I actually didn't look whether. Oh yeah, okay. They also have the 2-day event. So, all right. I never can entirely understand how exactly this works. Did the alert play? Did I miss it? Did it just not play? What? What, chat? That's unacceptable.
TacticalTortoise episode 1, the Phantom.
Just takes like 10 fucking minutes.
Could we quickly look at Krieg data sheets? I think a surprising amount of Forge World data sheets will come to plastic for Krieg.
I think we can, we can definitely talk about some Krieg data sheets. Yeah, because the scuttlebutt is from Games Workshop proper. I don't know if it's scuttlebutt as much as they just told us how it worked. Is that Krieg is the focus of the new codex. So I imagine, I have a sneaking suspicion we'd see things like plastic marshals and plastic death riders. I'm sure that's something we can expect. We can hop in on there. Why the heck do Tempestus Aquilons have the smoke keyword? It's because they're a lot of these special forces infantry in the game have smoke bombs. Like all the Phobos units randomly have smoke. Fucking Ghost Keel battle suits have smoke, even though, or they can if they take their like EM scrambler thing, even though it's worthless. But most of the time, it's just representing smoke bombs. That's a big part mechanically of the new Kill Team edition. Don't get me wrong, chat. I'm not a Kill Team expert, but I know that a lot of the stuff is coming with smoke bombs now because that's like that's a new effect that they can use. And I imagine that they just want to represent that mechanically in 40k. I don't know how often it's going to work. Like, who cares most of the time? Doesn't really matter that much. All right, I'm pulling out some Astra Militarum data sheets here. I actually don't know if I have the Militarum. We'll just go to the Warhammer community. I don't know if I have the Militarum Imperial Armor downloaded because it's so big. I can never find what I'm looking for in it anyway, so I was just like, whatever. All right. taking a peek at some Harlequins of smoke. Do they really? That has no mechanical effect, right? Oh no, Harlequins don't base up stealth anymore, right? That's old edition stuff where they're -1 to be hit. Yeah, I think I'm thinking of old rules there, Chance. So yeah, we can take a quick peek at some Deathcore Krieg datasheets in anticipation of new Astra Militarum units coming out. Deathcore Marshal. It would be interesting, I think, to push Militarum. One of the sort of mechanical identities of Deathcore are these really big infantry bricks, right? Because if you were to play an infantry army in Militarum right now, you would likely be taking the big 20-man Deathcore units with the Deathcore Med Pack, which lets you regenerate people, and then also this 5+ Feel No Pain from the Marshal. So you can have a huge unit of dudes that regenerate themselves, that all have a 5+ Feel No Pain, that are potentially like a proof cover save if they're to go to ground. That can really dominate the center of the table. You can like dump buffs on them and make them really good. I guess not necessarily dump buffs, but you can buff them a little bit. They're lethal hits against a lot of stuff, and they will actually put in some work. But at the very least, they're not too expensive. I think I want to say the Marshal comes in at like 55 points or something right now. So you're out like somewhere around 180 points. Let's double check his points value here. Who knows if this will, I wrote down Marshal in my search, it's a man named Marshal. It's a guy named Deathcore Marshal. This is there's multiple Marshals in the game. Jesus, 60 points, excuse me, 60 points. So you're down, I think, 190 for the unit plus the Marshal. And you can, if you want to, attach a command squad as well, if you really, really want to do that, if you want extra dudes in there. I don't know if necessarily you're that excited about it, but yeah, it's 130 points for the base unit of 20 plus the Marshal. So that would be cool. I think he's much more of an interesting mechanically interesting unit than the stupid Cadian Kesselin. That guy, I don't think I've ever seen him on the table, and he seems incredibly mediocre, but at least this dude, he's got a sweet ability. Hopefully that stuff gets retained in the new codex. Death Riders are the other thing. The other funny sort of meme build, right? Which might be something that we try to do on memes and themes at some point. But is obviously like mass cavalry. These guys gain, I believe if you take the Squadron Commander, they gain Infiltrate. So the big benefit is that you can pile an enormous number of like these 4-up save, potentially 3-up save, I guess, if you go to ground them. Units in the center of the table. And then just sort of occupy table space. They're not like the worst thing at fighting. They're not amazing. They kind of have like they're middle of the road between the frag and the Melta-Lance from the regular Attilan Rough Riders. It's a flat 3 attacks with an AP value, but doesn't have the same spike potential as either one of the other ones from the Rough Riders. I would like to see them have maybe a little bit more of a anti-armor melee attack, because it does feel like their melee profile is a little bit lacking, but that might be the only thing that you could say about them. For the most part, they're like just a big space occupier. They also have a 6-inch reaction move, so they're tough to get to grips with, and you can use them to kind of dominate the middle of the table. Right now, I believe they're relatively expensive, but obviously who knows if that is going to carry over into a new codex, especially if they get a new datasheet. Yeah, they're 14 points a model. I guess it's not that bad for like a super fast unit. The problem is that in order to get Infiltrate, you have to take a character, and the character's like kind of expensive too. So really, you're not really paying 13 points a model. You're really paying like 20. And that gets a little pricey. Suddenly they're the cost of like Space Marine Infiltrators, but they're not an infantry. They don't have an Omni Scrambler. They don't really do that much. I guess they get Devastating Wounds. It's kind of cute. But yeah, that's the I think the exciting stuff out of a Deathcore release. I think the other datasheet that we lost were Grenadiers, which I think had a miniature at one point, right? Was it these guys? Are these grenadiers, chat? They kind of look like regular Kriegers, but I have no idea. But they had they were basically special infantry. They had, back in the day, they had an auto shotgun and a gas grenade, like a mustard gas grenade, which I guess nowadays would be like anti-infantry 2 or anti-infantry 4, but it would be like a D6 shot blast weapon. So they would be like dedicated infantry sweepers. You could like jump them in, rapid ingress them, run up to somebody, and then like throw like 40 anti-infantry attacks at them. That would be a cool data sheet to see come back too, because they were occasionally extremely meta in a lot of situations. Theirs was also, it was old school poison back in the day, so they wounded everything non-vehicle on 4s. So they were actually absolutely lethal against like monsters and stuff. Like Chaos Demons would run out, and then this Grenadier squad would just yeet and absolutely destroy the entire unit. They used to use the Bombardier stratagem on them so that they all threw their grenade. But now I imagine it would just be a blast attack if they had it. Is the Engineer squad still? It's not in here, right? No. Is it in Legends? Where's the Legends stuff? It might be a Legend unit. Astra Militarum. There it is. Valkyrie Sky Talon. What are we looking? Yeah, Engineer. Oh, Grenadier, excuse me. Yeah, Death Corps Grenadier Squad, here they are. They're boring ability. Their 10th edition ability is that they can use grenade for 0 CP. Okay, boring. But they basically, otherwise, I guess, are just basic. They're like scions with extra steps. They're like a Khazarkin equivalent, I guess. The hope would be that they have as interesting mechanics as Khazarkin. But their big thing was that they were throwing gas grenades at you back in the day. That was always their mechanical identity. Plastic Engineer's Kit would be cool, yeah. Even just like, I don't know, something more modal than the kill team, the Krieger kill team. But I guess, so compared to the, he needs to calm down. Kitty cat, stop it. Compared to the regular Krieg squad, right? Did they have big shoulder pads? Was that their thing? Because I know that they had carapace armor. Oh no, we're looking up Grenadiers again. Not what I wanted. We're looking. They had carapace armor back in the day. They kind of look the same as the old models. Yeah. I guess they just have hotshot las guns is the only difference. Oh, they have a little skull mask. The other Death Corps don't have that. All right, I get it. They got a little skull hat. Welcome to the Grenadiers, soldier. Oh, and they have Greaves. That gives them +1 to save. A little Grieve. Fair enough. Welcome to the Grenadiers, soldier. You get a spooky helmet. Jesus Christ, cat. Ow. You get a spooky helmet and you get a shin pad. And now you are ready to go. Love Death Riders with sick of painting horses. The real trick is that one day they will bring they'll bring allies back, and you'll be able to take both Death Riders and Rough Riders and Cerberus stuff, Cerberus Sulphur Hounds and stuff, and you'll be able to take like 120 horses in a list. It'll be great. Internet players seething at the word grenadier. They were scary. The problem was that they were back in the day. They were AP0. I remember in 10th edition or in 9th edition. I did play against them a couple times, and they would throw like 1 trillion damage onto you. But a lot of it, you would just you'd be like, all right, 2 up, 5 up, feel no pain, and then you just save through it. You need to be high AP in that edition. I mean, you always need to be high AP, to be fair. Should we talk about some event results? Chat Alley and some Thunderwolf Cavalry? Exactly. Yeah, just go all the way. All right, so the Coventry GT was the big event for this weekend. Now, I hope I don't butcher exactly how this event works. But the Coventry GT is always a weird one because it's split into 2 separate events. The 3-day event and the 2-day event. The 3-day event is bigger and more prestigious, but the benefit is that it starts on Friday and the 2-day event starts on Saturday. So if you lose your first round in the 3-day event, I believe that the common practice is to drop and move to the 2-day event to try to win that one. So you have 3 buffer games. And if I'm incorrect about that, somebody can correct me. But it has always been a little bit of a confusing event. But yeah, there are 2 separate Coventry GTs that happen at the same time. The 3-day event is the big exciting one. So it's 140 players, I think. Is that right? 148 player major level event. Being taken down by Mr. Fushini over here, rocking some Astra Militarum. If guard cap ever gets really cheap, it will be horrific. Yeah, the difference is that they die. they just explode and go away very quickly. I don't know. Thunderwolf Cavalry are situationally have a blood surge move, -1 to be hit and wounded, and a 4+ invulnerable save, and 4 wounds, a T6. Whereas you're looking at a T4 4-up save guy with 2 wounds. You're like, okay. You kill those all day. Those guys just tend to evaporate pretty quickly, especially because they're melee oriented, so they have to be up in your face. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. I don't know if I would be super worried about mass cavalry, unless they're also mechanically hard to play right now too, because they have to go around walls and they have to pay for pivoting. So it's I don't know. They have a lot of downsides for the mounted keyword. Definitely good as a counterpunch unit. I don't know how good they will be offensively. And obviously, if we start to see more Death Rider style stuff get released, I don't know if they will retain their same mechanics that they do right now, right? I don't know if they're going to keep infiltrate and they're going to keep all these things, these reactive moves and stuff that they have, these skirmish abilities. The 9th Ed Gascrays were AP2? Were they really? Huh. Why didn't I die to them? Maybe I was just okay. I don't know. Interesting. Interesting chance. I seem to remember not being killed by them, but I don't remember exactly why. Hope I was able to get some rest. Well, yeah, 4 hours, so plenty. All right, let's talk about some Astra Militarum here, chat. So Fushi was rocking Lord Solar, Tempestus Command Squad, Platoon Command Squad, Tank Commander. No Grand Strategist on the Tank Commander. He's just chilling. We probably, I guess, didn't necessarily need it if we're not taking too many tanks. No, we do have a bunch of tanks. All right, well, egg on my face, chat. That's so interesting. No Grand Strategist on the Tank Commander, so we are a little bit limited on our number of vehicle orders that we can issue. I feel like most of the time he just issues orders to himself, but I guess if he's not in range to shoot anything, just being able to buff somebody else is pretty nice too. Triple Catachin Jungle Fighters, so 1 for Lord Solar to hop into, plus the Platoon Command Squad, obviously. 2 of them, I imagine, go in Chimeras. No, they're just ground pounding. Just everyone's on the table this time. Fair enough. Yeah, literally no dedicated transports whatsoever. So just 2 for board control. We still are taking a single big Bullgrin squad plus a little Bullgrin squad. So I guess the Bullgrin nerf basically cut a Bullgrin squad out of the build, I imagine. But that gives you one that you can use kind of more as a utility unit. You can push them up the center of the table. They still have like a reasonable spread if they're trying to body block or stand in the way of stuff. And you can also like throw them away, and you're not quite as worried about that. And then we have the big one to really solve, like to problem solve, to act as a bulwark if we need it to, or to act as a counterpunch if we are in a melee matchup where that matters. We do have a Hellhound to remove cover from people. This one's taking a multi-melta on the hull-mounted weapon, which is interesting. A lot of times you just see the double heavy flamer, but the multi-melta is also good. I actually consider running a heavy bolter just to get the longer ranged cover ignoring. But generally speaking, it doesn't feel like it matters too much, because you can buff its movement, and it's usually in a pretty forward position anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. The awkward part is that you oftentimes don't get to shoot the heavy flamer, because people are already trying to stay away from this thing. Eating the extra d6 damage is usually unnecessary, so they'll just stay outside 12 inches and you won't be able to shoot it. It's mostly there for Overwatch, and it's way less exciting than the Inferno Cannon anyway. Gas grenade was AP 2 damage. Damn. Maybe I did die. Maybe I was playing Crusher Stampede. I don't know. Yeah, it was I don't know. I really liked the combo. I thought the little Grenadier boys were really super cool. All right. Also running double Lehman Russ battle tanks plus an exterminator for the extra AP bump. The Lehman Russ battle tanks is a good inclusion. You get the hit rerolls. I think probably underplayed, I imagine. But the double Lehman Russ single exterminator is pretty solid, especially because you can get the Lehman Russ up to like the equivalent of AP 4-ish, because you can buff them with the exterminator, overlapping fields of fire, and ignore cover once the combo is assembled. We have an Ogren squad, and then double Tempestus Aquilons, and a big Tempestus Scion squad. So the Scion squad's to attach the Scion command squad into. So you just have this big sort of counterpunch unit. They don't shoot up super duper hard because they have a tough time with high toughness without a bunch of extra help. But they will just like come in and clear out all your opponent's utility units and stuff like that. They basically will just trade for an objective every time. And then the Tempestus Aquilons are in here. So I think one thing that a question that people had, I'm curious to see like sort of how much the community, I guess, comprehends why Tempestus Aquilons are good, because I know there has been a little bit of confusion, but the big part of it is the combination of a 3-inch deep strike from precision drop and rapid ingress is like a big one. Obviously, they can just do the normal deep strike stuff if you allow them to. So they can hop in and take objectives, or they can hop in and score your secondaries if you need them, right? In a pinch, they just are an Inceptor unit, right? They don't do as much damage as Inceptors, but obviously they're cheaper and there's more models. So they're higher OC. So if you're not screening out your objectives in the center of the objective, they'll take the objectives from you. Obviously, standing in the center of an objective so that nobody can drop 3 inches away from you is the counter to units like this. The downside is that you're also playing against 4 Lehman Russ. So usually you want to hide against Astra Militarum and then try to like leapfrog cover so that you can approach them and actually get to grips and start engaging their tanks. If you're forced to push your screens out farther to protect your objectives, and you can't just hold objectives from behind cover, the Tempestus Aquilons are like passively like generating value, right, already. On top of that, the combination of rapid ingress with this with the 3-inch deep strike is huge. We've seen that used a couple times with Inceptors, but obviously it's much harder to do with Inceptors because they are so small of a unit. But there's basically like an infinite number of useful situations in which that combination can be good. You can use it to restrict people's charges. So for example, if your opponent has moved up to you and they're within range of let's say a 7-inch charge of your tanks, you can rapid ingress and drop a Tempestus Aquilon squad 3 inches away from them and entirely block their ability to charge through your Aquilons. So they can charge the Aquilons, but if they're 7 inches away from the tank, it's unlikely they'll be able to touch the tank once the Aquilons are standing in front of them, as long as they can't fit their bases through with the charge move. That's like huge. They also they can do things like disrupt secondaries, not only with their shooting. They get to shoot their gun when they arrive via deep strike, when they arrive via rapid ingress, so they can potentially kill people when they arrive. But they can also, if you have, for example, secure no man's land or something, and you run up a unit to hold 2 objectives, and your opponent just rapid ingresses Aquilons onto those objectives, and you aren't set up to shoot them, they can contest those objectives and stop you from scoring that secondary forever and lock it into your hand. So there's so much flexibility with this unit. And then the thing that I fucking forgot about, which is the extra benefit, is that they are a regiment unit. If you have Gaunt's Ghost in your army, which I don't know if Nas did. He did not. If you have Gaunt's Ghost in your army, you can order these guys after they come out of reserve, since Gaunt can order a single regiment unit. So if those guys pick up and drop every turn, you could potentially drop these guys and then also order them. But also, you can just reanimate 1 unit. So you can have potentially up to 4 units of Tempestus Aquilons over the course of the game. And once they go back into strategic reserve, once you kill them and they reinforce back in, they also will 3-inch deep strike once again as well. So you get another instance of that. So it is, I think, an open question whether or not this unit is I don't know. I guess it's not an open question whether or not this unit is good. The question remains how good it is, and whether it is too good to require a nerf. I know that there has been some discussion about the unit going up in points. I do think that the points are very low. They're costed less expensively than a regular Tempestus Scion unit, and when you look at their offensive profile, you're like, that makes sense. The regular Tempestus Scions get way more special weapons, and they get rerolls. So clearly they should cost more, except that these guys do more to actually win the game for you because they manipulate the score so much that they are probably more valuable than the regular Tempestus. So putting them up to 11 or 12 points a model at least would be a way to go. But there has been some people who are asking for them to lose deep strike, for example, so they can only use this with strategic reserves. It seems like a mechanical transformation. I don't know if I'm as excited about. But I think that there's probably more event results to be tabulated before I imagine any final decisions are made over by the balance team. But I'd be curious to see. They should put a restriction on only 1 unit can have this range drop per turn or battle round. Yeah, that would be a good way to do it too. If you restrict it per battle round, 1 unit in your army with this ability can use it. If you do so, then you can 3-inch deep strike. That would be interesting. Cool unit with cool tools and equipment. They should cost less than regular Scions. Yeah, it's weird too because they're the Scions are already the special forces, and the Aquilons are supposed to be the special forces, right? We have U.S. Army Rangers, yes, but what about Delta Force? Make the ability once per game, for all units. It is essentially once per game already, since there's no way to uppy downy them, right? Once they're on the table, they're there forever. So it's not like Grey Knights or Chaos Demons or even Inceptors where you drop them and then you can then 3-inch deep strike again later on during the game, so you have to constantly be worried about it. Once all the Tempestus Aquilons are on the table, they can't 3-inch deep strike anymore. So that's not really a consideration, and that is an important thing to note too, right? These are a one and done unit outside of the one that will almost certainly get reanimated. They're not uppy downying, and they're not hopping around all game. Yeah, there's no way to functionally make it so that they can only do it once per game to beat the reinforcement stratagem, though, chat. I think that's what you're referring to. I think that what the desire would be was to make it so that the unit can only 3-inch deep strike the first time they drop, and then if they die and reinforce, then they can't do it again. But that is there's no way to do that because the reinforced stratagem adds a new identical unit to the army. And reinforced units always get their once per game abilities back and weapons back. So that already doesn't work. The other thing I honestly wonder if the regiment keyword is too strong on them too. Like I wonder how different it would be if they weren't regiment units. Dudes and I are on the same table, same page. It's recycled. Yeah, it's gated one time, so you can only ever reanimate one unit. Period. Full stop. So you can basically assume that Militarum armies that have Tempestus Aquilons, as long as you're killing them, which to be fair is some counterplay, you can simply leave them alive, and then they wouldn't be able to reinforce the unit. But there is some counterplay. You can sort of just assume that this Militarum army has 3 units of Tempestus Aquilons and starts the game with 2 less CP, right? But like you said, they have Lord Solar, so the 2 less CP isn't that big of a deal. But you just sort of assume that they will have 1 extra unit of Tempestus Aquilons. Then it shows that they do. The downside, obviously, there is that they aren't reanimating other units. But to be fair, I think that the only other thing that in this army that's like a solid reinforcement target is the Scion Brick. And that's not even that exciting. You get the special weapons back, but you don't get your command squad back. So I don't know, they're not nearly as effective without the Scion command squad because they aren't getting the lethal sustain wombo combo plus the order once they arrive at a deep strike. So like there is a little bit of a downside in that you are basically locking in your reinforcement pick at the beginning of the game. And I do think that like to some extent having these super powerful infantry units in Militarum does mean that if they have reinforcement style stratagems, they're sort of like locked in use on that unit, right? You're like contractually obligated to use it on the unit that's most effective, which is probably this one. And that just doesn't feel as quite as interesting or fun. Wait for the codex for uppy downy? Yeah, you might be right. It is likely that there is a Tempestus detachment that has some sort of like grav shoot redeployment. I would hope that they would keep this in mind when they were designing a new codex, but who knows? It is GW. Who knows if they thought about it? If you're not upping their points at 90 points, they're just a decent unit to yeet out and trade with. Yeah, I think it is weird. So, part of the consideration, I imagine, and I might be giving too much credit here, but the direct comparison here, right, is Vespid. Because this datasheet was released in like the same document. They're in the same box set, and it may be that Vespid are just like literally. They're traditionally a 5 model unit. But the big thing is that Vespid can be taken in 5 models, but they lose some efficiency if you do it because they don't get their heavy weapons. Who cares? The heavy weapons aren't that good. It feels to me like the reason that Aquilons can't be taken in 5 model units is that they didn't want this ability to be on like a very cheap utility unit. The problem was that they just made their base points pretty cheap, right? They're the same points value as Jump Pack Assault Intercessors, but they're twice as many models. They obviously don't do as much damage, clearly, but a 3-inch Deep Strike is probably more useful in more situations. And I think more game-changing, especially with the fact that you can recycle it. So it was a weird decision to be like, here's a 10 model unit that we don't want to split into 5s because it's probably broken, but we're going to point them kind of like they're a 5 model unit. And you're like, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, they cost the same as many other factions' utility units, but they have twice as many models and a good ability. Which is kind of weird. Like, they're probably a minimum 11 points per model. The Catitude attachment rolls minus 1 leadership during battle success. Like the enemies or themselves? So I think they could revert the one respawn per game with some rule adjustments. Endless Storm is so dead. Yeah, I honestly don't know why they did that, to be honest. I don't know. I have a bias against Endless Storm because I just don't like it, but putting that aside, I would like to see them change that effect back. But they have, like, there's a huge hang up about respawning units that Games Workshop has that I'm not sure I entirely understand. Like, units do have an inherent value in 10th edition because just having units to complete objectives is, like, valuable. And so I think they're worried about that becoming too powerful, but if you're burning through all your command points to do it, and the units that you're bringing back are easy to kill, then I don't know. And Grind can still come back 3 times a game? Yeah, potentially. Usually he just comes back 0 times a game, but, you know. Tyranids of Gargoyles, which are seen as broken good utility. Yeah, I don't know if it's like quite exact. It's exactly the same situation, right? Because Gargoyles are not as good at completing secondaries. They do not rapid ingress as well. They do dramatically less damage. Like a fractional percentage of the amount of damage that Aquans do. Not that Aquans do an insane amount of damage, but Gargoyles do like negative damage, and these guys do some amount. They do have a melta-gun and a sentry flamer that they'll probably shoot twice, and they could maybe grenade if they don't shoot the flamer. So, like, yeah, I don't know if the comparison's super apt between, like, the Aquans are definitely just like I think generically a better unit. The downside is that they don't, like, move as fast on the table and that they aren't as high OC, but that's basically the only downside. As a unit standing in Deep Strike, Aquans are more powerful, for sure. The key point is that Guard are the move, action, shoot you faction. Yeah, so I think there are some people who are like, you know, like I mentioned before, I saw some people calling to have, like, Aquan should lose Deep Strike, right? They should be, like, less useful unit. And I certainly don't agree with that. I definitely think that having more interaction with your opponent is good. The question is, like, how much interaction you should have. And it may be that these guys have too much. But I do think that having Guard be more interactive than just, like, I will stand here and fire my Earthshaker Carriage and my 2 Leman Russ and call it a day. I think that's pretty solid. And to be fair, right? Lists like this are not exactly pure gun lines, you know what I mean? Like, we do have a bunch of Leman Russ sitting on the table, but there are 2 Ogren squads, there's 30 Catachin Jungle Fighters, like, running up the middle, and 9 Bulgrin. This list is not sitting on its hands and doing nothing. It is, in fact, coming to fight you, at least at some point over the course of the game. And I do like that. And I like that Militarum have more units like this that allow them to interact with their opponent's side of the table. Because one thing that you oftentimes see Militarum do, and we actually literally saw this happen yesterday in the finals game, is the Militarum player is basically tabling their opponent every game. But they're not doing anything, right? They're like, their entire army's in their deployment zone. They're not scoring any points. So they're like, well, you don't have any points left on the table, but I don't have any points on my score sheet, so I lose anyway. And giving Guard more of an opportunity to take less high output units, but that can interact more and compete on the scenario is good. I generally like to see units be more proactive than reactive. I think it's more interesting for both players and, like, just sort of the game in general, if units are moving out to score rather than preventing your opponent from scoring. And I think that's one of the ways that Tempestus Aquilons get kind of silly, is if you start to like mess with your opponent's scoring, I think they get that's where like the toxicity comes out, right? But if they're just a unit that scores really well or can like move out and like threaten utility units, I think that's okay. They could lose the 3-inch deep strike while ingressing. Yeah, that actually, like, unironically, that might probably make them fine. Like, a 3-inch deep strike is very good, and honestly, there is like some argument that like in a lot of instances you could push 3-inch deep strike to like a 6-inch deep strike or a 5-inch deep strike or something, and it becomes easier to screen, but it's like still good for utility stuff. Part of the problem is, like, if you are not a very high model count army, a lot of times you simply can't screen 3-inch deep strikes to, like, protect characters and things, which does get a little bit frustrating, and that I understand. Yeah, it only working in your movement phase is actually, may, like, legitimately be the solution. Because then you get this, like, very proactive unit that's, like, and, like, maybe you bump them by 10 points or something, but, like, then you get this like proactive unit that can move out. It can like flamethrower some infantry or whatever, and it can be like annoying and score some points. But then your opponent kills it. And you're like, okay, I'll reanimate it or whatever. But they're not like blocking charges, and they're not like, you know, screwing with tactical draws, and they're not doing all this other stuff. Yeah, and yeah, when this unit set up on the battlefield with using the deep strike ability in your movement phase. That would be probably the way to go for sure. And it's interesting because there are so many of these abilities in the game, but so few of them are as good with ingress. Like the Calexis Assassin, right? Has it, and there's like really interesting ingress plays you can do with that guy. But, like, he's expensive, and he's OC1. Like, he's not blocking charges. He's just, like, a dude who hangs out. And, like, forces Battle Shock once per game or whatever. But, there hasn't been a unit that does it as a datasheet ability that is 10 OC. Like, that's the thing that kills me. It's 10 models. Like, as soon as you consider, like, what the footprint, the table footprint of 10 models, like, stringing out is, and rapid ingressing that 3 inches away from your opponent is, like, there's so much space that 10 models are able to take up if they really want to. And it's, like, it gets a little crazy when you think about it. Nobody else can do this during your opponent's turn that is, like, as big as the Aquilons are, and so it probably needs special consideration. Most armies can shoot them if they rapid ingress and line of sight. Yeah, but, like, you have control over where they rapid ingress, though. Like, as the Militarum player, I'm going to give Militarum players credit here, where they're not just going to, like, put the unit exactly where it's going to immediately be killed, right? Unless they are. And then force your opponent to attack them. But, like, it's not like, you know, your opponent is moving out to attack the rapid ingressing unit. The rapid ingress, they've already moved. The rapid ingressing unit gets to know where their line of sight is before it gets placed. Generally speaking, units that are rapid ingressing are not being placed in line of sight of their opponent's army. But they also have smoke bombs. Like, they're not and they have a 4+ save, so they can pump to a 3+ save. Or like 4+ plus cover, so like sort of 3+, and stealth. And so it's not like they die instantly. You're not going to point 2 heavy stubbers at this unit and kill it. Stop turning off my monitors, chance. If you move block with ingress, they can still shoot you. I mean, sometimes. Sometimes you can. Sometimes the armies that are the most... the armies that are the most reliant on making melee charges don't have a lot of shooting, right? Or only have a couple shooting platforms, and that's stuff that can be dodged. You know, if like World Eaters have 2 Forge Fiends, it's not that hard to dodge one of the Forge Fiends, and the other Forge Fiend is like What do we average? Like 12 shots. So you're like hit 8, wound, call it 7, and if they're in cover, you save one of those, and you still have 4 dudes left standing in front of their unit. Do you fucking mind? Jesus Christ. I don't think these should be more points than Inceptors. Don't get me wrong, Veldor. I also don't think that. Inceptors are 130 points. They are 40 points more than this unit. And I don't think that Tempestus Aquilons should be 130 points. I do think that it should be like maybe 110. That would probably be good. But I did see some people say like they should be 150. I'm like, I don't know about that. That seems like a lot. Never underestimate a World Eater's Rhino. I mean, to be fair, Chaos Rhinos do have a Havoc Launcher on the top. So that is a big deal, for sure. All right, Cat, you keep... literally, my computer monitors turn off when Inky gets near. You just gotta stay... You stay right here. And you are cute. And you just hang, get patted. They do get to shoot a flamer when they rapid ingress. That's true. That is true, and it's good. And sometimes that can be the reason that you rapid ingress them. But that's like part of the point, right? They have so much utility. It's crazy. But I think right now they're not paying for... they're not paying points for the amount of options that they have, right? They're like costed like a normal unit. But if you could use a normal unit in the number of... with like... If you had the same amount of tactical options with a regular unit, they would cost much more. Trick you did last game was move block the unit. Move block the charge. They still tagged the rust, but it was a demolisher. It didn't take any melee damage and then fired its combat cannon to combat next turn. Yeah, especially if you they can't target it. They can't touch anything else, right? That's a big deal for Lumen Rush demolishers. Because if you touch 2 things, the demolisher turns off entirely. But if all they can do is touch the Aquilons of the demolisher, and you're like, I don't care about the Aquilons, I'll just fall back and take Desperate Breakout. Then the demolisher's like, let's go! Get out of here! Yeah, Inky is an honorary Tempestus Aquilon. She's 3-inch deep striking. All right, chat. Is that enough Tempestus Aquilon talk? First off, huge congratulations to Fucci for winning this one. I don't want to take anything away from him. I think it's an interesting discussion. Obviously, I think that he also, with the title of his list, is ready to have that conversation as well. But I don't want to take anything away. Winning an 8-round GT against some of these names that are at the top here. Josh Roberts was in the top. Stephen Box was in the top. Just a ton of incredible players is super huge. Another thing that I also want to point out, too, is how consistent the top armies in the game have been. We see Drukhari continuing to do well, and even at the event that I streamed, there were a bunch of Drukhari players, and I believe that second place actually went to Drukhari as well. So even through their nerfs, Drukhari still getting work done. It's funny that I think a lot of stuff has moved to real space, right? They nerfed to the wrong stuff. And just moved to taking Homunculus Coven things. Homunculus Coven, oh my god. There's 10 Hellions in this list, chat. What? What? Who is Daniel Whitaker? Are you God? What the fuck? That's incredible. Excuse me? That caught me entirely off guard. But they nerfed all the Sky Splinter Assault combos, so everyone just moved to taking Homunculus Covens, and Homunculus Coven stuff was kind of flying under the radar, because it wasn't quite as good as Incubi or, like, Capellite Archon stuff, but it still had play, specifically in Real Space Raid, because you get the benefits for taking the Homunculus. Although, I guess we didn't even take any Homunculus in this list anyway. But Insensible to Pain is, like, a huge deal, right? It was just not quite as like useful as the other stuff, but now that there's no really reason to take that other stuff, we're running just a bunch of grotesques, and I guess they've been seeing some pretty solid success. I don't know about Hellions though. That came out of nowhere. Hellions. Yeah, chat. There's Hellions here. Absolutely wild. They do have like, they have an okay melee profile, right? And they're like a good utility unit. They're just so expensive for what they do. And it's like, why would you take the Reaver, like them over Reavers? But maybe to prove a point. Like, fuck it. We got phantasm grenade launchers. Maybe we're just throwing grenades at people. That's absolutely insane. I've been shocked. I've been shocked. Solidified your plan of using 2 5-minute infiltrator bricks. Yeah. So infiltrators are I mean, a solid counter. The interesting thing about to just touch on the Aquilons one more time here, chat. And this is a point that I was like considering. I was thinking about earlier before I hopped on the stream, but I forgot to talk about it. But I think one thing that Aquilons kind of do interestingly is a little way, in a small way, they sort of dodge their counter. Infiltrators are a really good way to block off, to protect your backline objectives and stuff from being Tempestus Aquilon or any 3-inch deep striker, obviously. The weird thing is that I think Aquilons get a lot of value by dropping in front of your army, not just behind your army. So there are situations in which the Aquilons simply don't care that you have infiltrators, right? But it is important to have those infiltrators to stop them from just like messing with you. The downside is that I think you do need like 2 units probably to protect themselves, because one thing that can happen if you just have like a navigator or something is that the Aquilons just drop somewhere near the navigator. You could like even ingress behind your opponent's army and just shoot that dude and then open up the way, because he's only 3 wounds. Infiltrator is a lot harder to do that with, especially with smoke and Hour of Contempt available. But still, a reasonable consideration where Aquilons could potentially just ingress outside 12 and then jump into, walk into 12 on their turn. So there's a lot of ways that you could use them even if they are being infiltrated, which not a lot of other deep strikers have. But it's still a useful counterplay. And I wonder too if, obviously we're going to talk about Genestealer Cult in a sec. I wonder too if with Genestealer Cult being so prevalent as well, if we start to see things like the Phobos Librarian units come back into vogue, because having a unit that can just protect you from the insane numbers of deep strikes that we're about to see is going to be good. To be fair, I don't think it's necessarily new, because we just moved out of a, looking back 3 months ago, we just moved out of a metagame that was dominated by Hypercrypt Legion into a metagame that's now being dominated by Aquilons and Genestealer Cults, which is basically just the same, right? Everything old is new again. So we're essentially fighting the same battles that we did a couple months ago. So realistically, the same technology should still be good. What's wrong with Hellions? I think almost entirely the comparison to other units. Although I think, did Reavers get hit? I forget. Because they were more expensive than 3 Reavers, and Reavers brought they were like a faster base movement. Obviously they were mounted, which is less exciting, but they also had like their mortal wound infliction and a heavy weapon, and were cheaper. And so the comparison was like very poor in for Hellions. I immediately forgot where to find the mutant improvement. Here he goes. Where you at? Where you at, Reavers? Oh, Reaver Titan is 2,200 points. Just so you know, chat. That's how many points a Reaver Titan is. Reavers did get hit. They went 265. Oh, they were 60 before? Jesus, dude. Fuck me. They were 60 points for those things. They have like a Melta 3 laser, like fucking heat lance. Are you kidding me? Hellions were also, I think they were 85, right? They were 17 a model. Which was like insane. For 3 more points, you got a heat lance and like mortal wounds and a faster base speed. But Hellions went down and Reavers went up, so I think the comparison is much more favorable. Plus, they were OC2, like the Reavers as well. They were better at taking objectives. It's just insane. So it makes more sense in context, I think, right? As we're talking about it, it's now a 10-point upgrade to take Hellions instead of Reavers, and you get infantry keyword and a better melee profile, which is definitely solid. Reavers, yeah, I don't want to say Reavers are bad for sure. I think Reavers are still amazing. The little 3-man squads, especially. And maybe the value there is being colored by Ynnari, but like Ynnari Reavers are like the silliest unit. They move like 22 inches, and then they shoot you with full rerolls with like a Melta Trillion weapon, and then you're dead. And then they traded up their points like 2x and scored a secondary. All right, chat. Well, that's exciting. I can't believe that there are Reavers seeing competitive play right now. That's super cool. But the other thing too is that obviously Genestealer Cult is going to do incredible. I think Genestealer Cult were already they were on the cusp of being solved, and they got a huge points cut. So now they're just going to be everywhere. Today we got Biotainted Broodsurge. The interesting thing about GSE is that they went from a faction that wasn't really seeing too much play to, I think, having a lot of internal balance, or at least a lot of build variety, where Broodsurge is very popular. Obviously, Outlander Claw is extremely popular, and I still think that there's play in Ascension Host as well. So this is a faction that I think we could see for a faction that is almost certainly going to be like top 3. It will be interesting to see, I think, the amount of variety that we start to see in them. And I know we saw an undefeated GSC. Maybe we didn't. I know there were some other good Genestealer results this weekend too, and it will be interesting to see where the detachments slot in, because I think there's a lot of interesting options. It is a big tax, but shuts down some Mars from the get-go. Yeah, I mean, 12-inch Deep Strike's always incredibly good. Deep Strikes and strategic reserves are so important right now that it's crazy strong. Almost any faction that has access to it should probably take it, as long as it's on a cheap enough unit. And that's, Navigators being in every Imperium army now is going to be huge. So this list, anyway, from the 3-day. So this is X and 1, Ben Jones over here. Rocking triple Abominant, Biophagus, Clamovis, double Kellermorph, Patriarch.
I just want to gush about Foot Autarch in a Guardian squad on the back point.
Super chat.
For 175 you get 1 CP per turn, 5 fate dice, a free strat every turn, fights for the entire unit, and a bright lance.
I'm glad that Super Chat didn't take a million years to jump in. Yeah, Foot Autarch seems really good. I almost wonder if you even need the Guardian unit. Is that weird? I guess the Guardian unit just generating fate dice is good, but for an extra 100 points, 100 points in Eldar goes such a long way. You're like, what can I take for 100 points? And you're like, You're like a war walker, almost like most of a Wraith Lord. Wow, 2 units of Rangers, it's a lot. 100 points, Eldar MSU there's just so many good options. You get you're almost at 2 Vipers. You're almost there. It's close. But obviously there's a huge amount of utility for that unit. But even just the Foot Autarch hanging out, because his ability is not a leadership ability. So he just generates UCP. He's chilling. You can shoot him with a mortar. That's the problem. You could get indirect fired, and then you have to be cognizant of that. But also, he can just Phantasm or Lightning Fast himself for free. So he can just hop around the table. Yeah, the Guardian unit generating fate dice is huge. But realistically, the fate dice have a diminishing level of value the longer the game goes, right? So they do give you 5 fate dice, but it's not really 5 fate dice. It's 2.5 fate dice, right? Because the first 2 rounds, getting a fate dice is huge. Like, round 3, getting a Fate Dice is good. Round 4 and 5, getting a Fate Dice is alright. And a lot of times, those Guardians will have to move, either be dead, because somebody killed them, or they'll have to move. I don't want to say it's bad, though. But it is certainly a cost, right? To take a unit that is, like, a little bit less combat effective than, you know, something like a Warwalker, in order to get that value. Yeah, the screening, I think, is definitely, like, the kicker for sure. Like, having a big, like, high volume unit in Eldar to screen is definitely solid. I'm definitely not gonna thumb my nose at having 10 models in Eldar, because that is not a faction that tends to have the luxury of 10 guys in a unit. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's very good. For sure. And I think the Foot Autarch definitely went from being like kind of a joke unit who was stupid to being extremely strong in one update, which was really cool. It's definitely it's a competition with the Wayleaper. And I could even see Wayleaper going down like not a bunch of points, but they're like 130 points right now. They're like crazy expensive. But now that indirect fire has been nerfed, you don't really need him as much. He's not like as necessary, and I think they could cut him by 10 points or something. I think that would make the comparison a little bit better, because it definitely feels like the Foot Autarch just gives you so much more value, just in general. Yeah, the support weapon platform being like just a tougher body is very funny too. All right, chat. We'll keep talking about this Biosanctum Broodsurge over here. So we have the Patriarch with the Biomorph adaptation, which is the +1 AP and damage. Is that right? That's the combat enhancement for Broodsurge. I'm gonna double check just so I remember. Survey says this man has +1 AP and damage. Nailed it. It's interesting. Oh, that's Abominant or Patriarch only. Interesting. I guess they didn't want to give it to, like, Knife Sancti or something. The little knife guy, the anti-infantry knife guy. And then Predatory Instincts is the old enhancement from the Ascension host, or whatever it was. Day of Ascension was the old detachment where you can infiltrate and heroically intervene for free. We also get, let's see, Auto Pistol Acolytes, Double Hand Flamer Acolytes, Neophytes, bunch of Objective Holders, 1 Goliath Truck to ferry them around, Triple Aberrants to house the Abominants, and then these guys, like I was saying last week when we were talking about most improved units, the Aberrants over here getting a points cut for the 5 model units is huge, right? Because these units become hyper efficient. Whereas previously, if you're like, well, if I'm buffing a unit with an enhancement and I'm attaching a character to them, I would always take the 10-man. The 5-man being less expensive is like such an interesting design choice, and I love it. Because you're getting less... The units that have a big, like, kind of multiplicative benefit from attaching a character into them definitely should be less expensive if you're taking fewer of them, because it doesn't really matter so much. You're getting less value out of the unit being a unit itself, which is usually why the first 5 models in a unit are less expensive, or are more expensive than the last 5, because there is an inherent value in having any unit. But it's different if they're already at like a high price per model, and you're getting less of that extended benefit from attaching the character into it. So I think that's like really cool. I'm excited to see that kind of design philosophy transferred over to more units, because I think it makes this unit way more playable. You don't no longer feel like you're obligated to rock in for like a 350 point brick. You now feel like, hey, I can take this little 200 point unit. These guys hit pretty hard. They deliver a character who hits super hard, and I'm not like breaking the bank to do that. And that's really cool. We got the 2 Ridge Runners, both with mortars and spotters. So 2 crossfire outlets potentially, plus a hybrid metamorph unit, cool, and then 20 Prisoner Gene Stealer. So a big one for the Patriarch to hop into, and then 2 5-mans for utility. A big metamorph unit's interesting. I imagine that they get the Biophagus. They lose Scout, right, if they attach him, but they get all of the detachment abilities. And as we talked about a couple weeks ago, the detachment abilities, once you've applied them to the Metamorph unit, they're actually kind of sick, right? Because you get +1 attack and strength on the charge. So the Metamorphs with their like base 2 damage melee attacks actually become kind of like blenders. Plus lethal hits from the Biophagus too. Yeah, that's a good point too about the aberrants, is that you get more chances to regenerate them, right? If you have many smaller units versus a few big units, and that's probably like just a generally good piece of design for these guys in general. For Gene Stealers, I should say, for these guys, for Gene Stealers in general, because having more units on the table is definitely better. One sec, chat, sorry. Yeah, what do you mean, you people? Oh, man. Love Fable the Revives. Yeah, I do wish... I mean, we'll see how Gene Stealer Cult end up doing. I kind of wish that... And obviously, they can't do this because they're restricted to the number of mechanical changes they can make every update. But I do sort of wish that they had changed Cult Ambush to be more reliable rather than giving Gene Stealer Cult like huge points breaks, because they did get like kind of like just mind-bogglingly big points breaks. And the problem I think with the faction is that like their army ability is so inconsistent, and I hate that. I hate inconsistent abilities, and I wish that it was just like it automatically happened, but you always got less guys back or something. I think that would be more interesting. But it is what it is. Steven Box played an Army of Faith, chat. God, these lists are so cool! Man, this new update, I don't know. Maybe we'll get tired of it 2 months in, but it seems like so much stuff is good that I'm psyched about it. Steven Box over here with the old Army of Faith. I'm honestly surprised that this is the first time that we're talking about this detachment, because I've talked about it on my datasheet deep dives, but Army of Faith potentially has like the most insane set of stratagems out of the entire Adeptus Sororitas codex, right? Sororitas tend to have really good datasheet abilities and detachment abilities. The detachment ability, don't get me wrong, it is good, right? It can make your characters like super tanky or hit super hard, but it drains your fate dice, your miracle dice, excuse me, super quickly. You have a couple ways to get like dice regeneration and stuff. And it's not particularly flashy, but there's a lot of like good ways to use it, and it becomes very powerful, especially once you have like a bunch of 6s in your pool. But their stratagems they tend to be like pretty good, right? They're okay. Hallowed Martyrs has some really good ones. Bringers of the Flame is mostly just like good on the fact that they can advance and shoot you from literally anywhere. But these guys, they have a protection against mortal wounds. Like, who cares? That one's kind of whatever. They have ignore modifiers so all of the gimmick of the detachment is that they get enhanced stratagems if you are using them on jump pack units. If you use the stratagem on a jump pack unit, generally speaking, with most of the stratagems, it turns into an aura off of that jump pack unit. So you can use things like Celestine or Zephyrim, which are really cheap now, to like run into the center of your army to like buff your tanks and things, which is super sick. Light of the Emperor gives you characteristic modifier ignoring. You can ignore the profile characteristics. You can ignore all modifiers to the profile characteristics of your models, weapon skill and ballistic skill characteristics of weapons included, or any roll or test made for it. So you ignore -1 weapon skill, -1 ballistic skill, -1 to hit, -1 to wound. I don't remember if this applies to armor penetration characteristics. I think that they rolled that it does, but I can never keep anything straight. I'm sure there's a Sisters player in chat who can remind me. You could give your melee weapons Lance. Already good. You also gain Miracle Dice if you kill people, so you have a Miracle Dice regeneration there. That one is not an aura, to be fair. There's a -1 to hit in an aura from a jump pack unit, and you can use it reactively on a jump pack unit within 3 inches of the target of an attacking unit. So, for example, if you're sitting Celestine next to a Castigator, and they shoot the Castigator, you can pop it off Celestine, and it becomes an aura for the remainder of that phase. So it affects all your Castigators within 3 inches of Celestine's unit. Sick. That's super good. It's like extra good smokescreen. And you can combo with smokescreen if you have enough CP as well. You can also get +1 AP in either shooting or fight phase. Already good. And then also, just like Faith and Fury, the Lance stratagem, you can generate Fate Dice, or Miracle Dice, excuse me, when you kill people. And you also have an uppy downy for jump pack units. So like there's a dud in here, right? Like the 5+ field pennies, Norals, whatever. Who cares about that? But all of the other stratagems are useful basically every game. Ignore modifiers. -1 to hit, +1 AP, Lance, uppy downy. Are you kidding me? It's crazy. It's crazy how good the stratagems as detachment are. Which is why we're taking Judith Aeroida to make sure we have enough CP to run all these stratagems, because they're so good. It does counter AOC? Alright, good shit. Yeah, I believe that they ruled that weapon profiles are profile characteristics, but I can never keep it straight, dude. They change it so often. Alright, what do we got going on? We got a jump pack cannoness. Just a jump pack cannoness with a halberd. So again, a good jump pack unit that we can uppy downy, or we can sit next to our other units to provide the auras to them. There's no Celestine, which is interesting, but we do have Junith, Morven Val, a Palatine, and a Triumph of St. Catherine. One regular Battle Sister squad. We watched the Battle Sister squads, by the way, over the weekend. If you missed Jeffrey Kolodner's game in the final game, his Battle Sister squads were insane. They were like the most useful thing I'd ever seen in my life. He was like, yeah, I've locked like 5 objectives, and they're all generating Fate Dice, or Miracle Dice. I keep using Fate Dice because I'm on an Eldar kick. And I'm gonna move block with them too, and then also shoot you for 1 billion damage with a melting gun. It was extremely strong. We had 1 Immolator to split them up into 2, an Arcoflagellant unit for utility, triple Castigators. Again, we can sit all the Castigators next to that jump pack cannoness, and then just like give them all the buffs, right? They can all ignore modifiers, they can all ignore AOC, they can all get -1 to hit. Just huge buffs. We have a Celestian Sacrosanct unit. Cool. They did get a points cut, so hopefully they're more playable now. There's actually an interesting data sheet to look at, because it's not something that I've looked at in a while. Let's take a peek. A little peek here. They're -1 to be wounded as long as a character is leading them, which is probably the Palatine. Does the Palatine have the sword? No. There are literally no enhancements in this army. Alright, fair enough. And otherwise, they just have 3 T damage melee attacks. Okay. Yeah, I guess when you're lancing and or +1 APing, these are actually really good profiles. Once you attach lance to almost anything, it's just good. Yeah, I don't know. Makes sense to me. A Paragon Warsuit unit for Morven, a Seraphim squad, and a Zephyrim squad. So we have a couple more outlets for that, for the auras. We also, the Seraphim squad are probably like the most legit uppy downy target ever, right? Because they can like drop, shoot, move, pick up, drop, shoot, move. So like the level of flexibility you have with that unit to jump into different areas of the table to complete your secondaries is crazy. Absolutely crazy. And then we have a unit that can chill in the middle, and the Zephyrim are like a solid counterpunch, but they can also provide those aura buffs as well, or they can use the uppy downy to be a utility on top of that. Attach Junith, give me -1 to hit. Yeah, I think you don't really want Junith, you don't really want in the fight. She's not that good at fighting. She's okay, I guess, but she's like not that exciting. The Palatine you really want to be there. And I guess, what does he have them armed with? Is it the halberd? Yeah, it's the halberd. So he has lethal sustain on them too, because of the Palatine. And then you can also +1 AP them. So you can be lethal sustain with AP3, which is pretty good. I'm so excited that we're seeing Army of Stacey play, chat. It's it's like, it was crazy to me. Like, the problem was that our Bringers of the Flame was, and to be honest, like, still might be, just like so overwhelmingly powerful that there was literally no reason to look at the other detachments. But the other Sisters detachments are really good. And it was just like, Penitent Host is the one that got a lot of looks, because Penitent units tend to be relatively strong. They were just like so expensive that it didn't really make sense, and like the detachment's so restrictive. But the other detachments, Hallowed Martyrs occasionally sees play, but Army of Faith is just like sitting there the whole time, and it's like so cool to see people unlock it. Penitent Host being locked to using their rolls of the first returns is weird. Yeah, I mean, there's like some FAQs that they added in the latest round of FAQs that are definitely technically correct, and I think that's one of them. Right? That's straight up just how the rule's written, right? It says each battle round choose one of these. It doesn't say you can or you may. It says each battle round do this. Pick a buff and you get that buff. But that's stupid. So like, they were correct. That is how the rule is worded and how you should probably play it, because that's what it says on the tin. Whether it should say that is the other question, and I have a sneaking suspicion I would be shocked if that doesn't see a change in a couple months, because it's very dumb. What a stupid way to make that work. Feels like the rules writer wrote must instead of can. Yeah, it just the can wasn't even included, right? Yeah, it just says in your command phase choose one of the following benefits. Yeah, I don't know. Should not have said that for sure. Should we dive into the 2-day chat? Should we talk about some 2-day lists? Because we got some spicy ones. Vic Vijay, also with Adeptus Sororitas. And I was talking to Jeffrey Kolodner after the game yesterday, who's a sweetheart, by the way. We had a great conversation. And he was like, yeah, Vic's over here in Coventry, like, getting our faction nerfed. Like, god damn it. But I think between Jeffrey, Vic, and Steven Box, Adeptus Sororitas had a phenomenal weekend. Even post-nerf, it turns out that a faction as deep as Adeptus Sororitas, there's still a lot going on, even if your main list gets nerfed. Definitely let Penitent Host players use them whenever. Yeah, like it's like so clearly a combat doctrine, right? Like every other instance. I'm gonna adjust my camera here, chat. It's a little crooked and it's annoying me. Every other instance of that ability is says that you can choose one, and now it's crooked the other way. Great. My like little tripod I have for my web camera is like a little old, I think. It's a little weak in the knees, and so it slowly tilts. I need a new one, or I just need to use one of the many other expensive tripods I have. It's so clearly like a combat doctrine ability, and it's just so funny that it doesn't work that way. It sucks for the detachment, but it is what it is. Jeff is amazing at Sisters. Yeah, he was excellent showcase. If you want to like see just super duper consistent Sisters play, go watch the game we streamed yesterday. Yeah, it was good stuff. It was good stuff. Imagine if you had to use Gladius Doctrines in the first 3 turns. Like the best part is, right, is that's how combat doctrines used to work. Y'all remember that? That just used to be what combat doctrines did. Round 1, you were Devastator. Round 2, you were tactical. Round 3, you were assault. Done. That was how the game worked. And then they were like, nah, that's bad and stupid. You can pick them whenever. Unless you're a Sisters player, and then you're locked in. You're like, okay. Honestly, though, Gladius is like... I don't want to see Gladius nerfed, because I think it might be my favorite detachment in the game. But it's probably my favorite detachment in the game because it's unspeakably overpowered. If Gladius was in any faction besides Space Marines, it would be literally the dumbest thing ever. And it almost is the dumbest thing ever, because Space Marines consistently do well with it. As bad as that faction's doing, there's always some Dark Angels player making Gladius Task Force work, because it's so good. Sisters on the Ritual seems rough for anyone, yeah. Yeah, it was. They made some compelling arguments about the competitive viability of Ritual, for sure. It was definitely interesting to watch, hear the discussion about the the objective control effects, like the effects that trigger when a unit's controlling an objective, in the mission where objectives can be way closer than they were originally intended to be. Because most of those are like, oh, I control the objective in my deployment zone, so I'll get 1. Or like, maybe I control 2, so I'll get like 2 Fate dice or Miracle dice or CP or whatever. Blessings of Khorne rerolls. But then when you have like Sisters units, like 3 Sisters units, each on 3 different objectives, and you're just generating insane numbers of Miracle dice, you can be like, I get it. That was definitely not how that rule was intended to be played, but you know, it is what it is. That's how they wrote it. All right, chat. Let's talk about some more Sisters. Let's talk about Vic's list. Rockin' Hallowed Martyrs. He's got a Saintly Example Canoness, another Canoness, Satyr Canoness. So the Saintly Example is the Miracle Dice Pinata. So when you kill the Canoness, she explodes into Miracle Dice. You can then you can combo that with Divine Intervention to regenerate the Canoness once she's destroyed. So then she comes back, and then you can do it again. Demonifuge, the key with the Demonifuge here. This is all kind of like old Sisters technology, by the way, because this detachment basically didn't change between the Index and the Codex. It lost some enhancements and some stratagems moved, but otherwise it was the same. The key with the Demonifuge is that because they are infantry or walker unit, you can use Suffering and Sacrifice on them to force enemy units to attack them. And the Demonifuge can Deep Strike, and it can Heroically Intervene for free. So you can put them in Deep Strike. Your opponent goes, I'm going to set up to charge this unit. You go, I'll Rapid Ingress. You put the Demonifuge right next to them. They charge. You go, I'm going to Heroically Intervene. Suffering and Sacrifice. You have to attack the Demonifuge. And they fight first. I believe so. I'm going to double check that on myself on that. But they... You're basically like then required to punch through stupid Kaiganil. They do fight first. All right, I'm not an insane person. You have to punch through Kaiganil, right? Who's like 3 wounds with a 4+ invuln, and then you can hit Ephrael Stern, and then Ephrael Stern can regenerate once you hit her. So like, if you have the CP and the Fate dice sitting in your pool, the Demonifuge can just totally like ruin your opponent's aggressive push. Like, it's crazy. The amount of like annoying, like little annoying stupid things that Hallowed Martyrs does is crazy. So that's the combination there. They're also just a 2-model unit, so they're good for secondaries. They can like Deep Strike in your opponent's backline and hang out and run around. They do some mortal wounds. Like, it's just a useful unit to have. 85 points is pretty cheap for them, to be honest. Especially for 7 wounds with a 4+ invuln save across 2 models. So you have to usually do more than 7 damage because you'll do some overkill damage as well. Oh, excuse me, it's 8 wounds. Ephrael Stern has 5. Damn. All right, well, fair enough. Junith Aeroida to generate CP, a Ministorum Priest, maybe to join the Arco-Flagellants. He can do that, right? It's actually kind of interesting. He can join Arco-Flagellants to give them +1 to wound. Huh. That's cool. And a Triumph of St. Catherine, because it's Sisters, and you gotta. We've got an Immolator. The Arco-Flagellants, these are good in Hallowed Martyrs specifically because you can get them. They can source +1 to hit once they've taken casualties, and they're pretty good at taking casualties. It's hard to kill the whole unit because they have a bunch of wounds and a feel no pain, but they're pretty good at just like sort of eating damage. And once they trigger that +1 to hit, their damage output increases pretty significantly. Triple Castigator plus triple Exorcist. Holy shit! Oh, it's double Castigator. Excuse me, chat. So 2 Battle Cannon Castigators plus triple Exorcist as well. Hot diggity damn! The indirect fire is back, ladies and gentlemen. Reports of indirect fire's death were wildly exaggerated, apparently. Plus a Sister Novitiate squad for frontline. So we have a lot of like little. So the Arco-Flagellants can provide you some pretty good counterpunch. They have like they're a pretty good frontline unit just to sit in the middle and threaten to fight anybody who comes to fight them. You have a bunch of really annoying stuff. The Canonesses can pop their 2+ invulnerable save once per game and like run up in the middle of the table. You push through the 2+ invulnerable save. You kill them in the next phase. They regenerate. You have to kill them on a 3rd time. And that's even if you don't get screwed by fate, by miracle dice dumping on them and saving their saving throws. The Demonofuge to mess that up, and that's all supporting triple battle tanks. And if ever you don't kill these battle tanks when you shoot them, they just get better at shooting back at you because the Hallowed Martyrs detachment ability is so good on them. You get +1 to hit if you're damaged, +1 to wound if you're below half strength. Obviously, the worst you can get, unless there's other hit penalties affecting you, is your baseline ballistic skill, essentially. Because even if you are damaged to your bracket, right, and you get -1 to hit, at that point you're already +1 to hit and definitionally +1 to wound. So you're shooting normally, but with +1 to wound. There's a sweet spot where you're just below half damage, but not quite damaged yet. Your damage bracket hasn't been entered yet, where you're +1 to hit and wound. And if you're in that spot and you're shooting these Castigators, things go absolutely insane. But then they can buff the Exorcist missile shots as well, so it all sort of wombos together pretty well. Gorgeous, chat. Monetizing triple Exorcist top 3 of the 2 day, because list copiers will run them now, for sure. For sure. Alright, folks. I want to talk about Necrons, and then we'll dump into Chaos Demons, because I love them. Andy Quas Cohen, back at the top table here. Can't touch this. Hypercrypt Legion. The Nightbringer and Silent King. Triple Hex Mark Destroyer. Plus a Canoptic Spider. Double Doomsday Arc. I love that Doomsday Arcs went down, because it's such a... I don't know. I don't know if I'll enjoy playing against them. But all my time playing Doomsday Arcs, I have loved them very much. When the Doomsday Arc goes off, oh boy, does it go off hard. They're like, hey, take out Mortal Wounds and 3 saves at AP 4. For flat 4 damage. We have Canoptic Spider to give them a Feel No Pain, a Deathmark unit to jump around the table, 2 Locust Destroyers, Flayed Ones, and a Tesseract. Vault! So we have the Feel No Pain from the Canoptic Spiders, the rerolls from the Silent King. Those can all hop around the table, plus the Tesseract Vault can use Cosmic Precision to jump in wherever it wants to. The Doomsday Arcs are kind of incredible coming off the side of the table. That's one thing that I think gets overlooked with them sometimes, is that, I mean, I guess this isn't, I don't think I'm saying anything particularly new or groundbreaking here, but one of the downsides of Doomsday Arcs traditionally has been the fact that your opponent's just like, oh man, I really don't want to be shot by that Doomsday Arc, so I will not enter its line of sight. The benefit of Hypercrypt Legion is that you can always reposition them to shoot something. And a lot of times, part of the way that this list operates is that it will force the Tesseract Vault in your face, buffed by the Silent King. So it picks a side of the table and it goes, hey, there's a Tesseract Vault here. It's going to kill something for sure. The Silent King's probably going to kill something. And we're going to dominate with like 800 points of super heavies on one side. Your opponent goes, oh, I have to commit in to kill that. If you back it up with the Doomsday Arcs, usually the Doomsday Arcs can reserve in that turn, shoot a utility unit or something stupid, but be in a position where they're covering the Tesseract Vault. As soon as you come in to shoot the Tesseract Vault back, the Doomsday Arcs remain stationary, and then they turn on their devastating wounds. So they're like the counterpunch to whatever kills the Tesseract Vault. The Tesseract Vault, I imagine, and for the most of the games that I've seen, usually dies anyway, right? It comes in, he's like, I'm a 4+ invul and 6+ field no pain, I have a trillion wounds, but everyone's like, I have to kill that thing because it's gonna fucking times 0 all my characters and throw antimatter meteors at my stuff, my backline stuff. So they eventually kill the Tesseract Vault, or they neutralize the Tesseract Vault, but they have a tough time doing that and not just simply dying to the Doomsday Arcs. And if the Doomsday Arcs can kill whatever kills the Silent King, then he just runs the table for the rest of time, running around. So this list is, I don't know. I like big battle tank lists like this, chat. This is a big battle tank list. It's just trundling up the table, and by trundling, I mean teleporting incredibly fast. We got a counterpunch from the Nightbringer as well, plus a bunch of hex marks for utility. Just a bunch of utility units, some infantry clear, and then like 4 enormous battle tanks that just laser cannon people. And I love it, chat. Does the Tesseract even fit in WTC terrain? I believe so. I believe that it does. The interesting thing about the Tesseract Vault, chat, this is probably important to talk about. The interesting thing about the Tesseract Vault is that, can I find the... Does GW have the 3D spin on their website? Wait, GW does like ratings on their store? Google says this has a 4.6 star rating. What does that mean? The interesting thing about the Tesseract Vault is this picture. So you look at this model and you're like, holy shit, it's so big. How will it fit next to the terrain feature? But it doesn't. It straddles the terrain features. So it's actually way easier to fit into tight spots. The downside of the Tesseract Vault comes in situations where you have a very restricted deployment zone, in which case you might have to like reserve it and then rapid ingress it, which gets a little bit awkward. I believe that it might be too large to fit into Dawn of War, but I can't confirm that. But usually when you're placing it, you're almost always cosmic precisioning it. So it can come in 3 inches away from enemies, so it's like basically, it's almost unrestricted on where it can drop in. And then even if you have huge ruin walls, you can essentially always put it in a position where the ruin wall sits between 2 of the wings, right? So the ruin wall would be like in here. And the vault can then squeeze into that spot. So it can actually basically place like base to base with a ruined terrain feature. So its capacity to maneuver around the table, or to be placed around the table, is really easy. Its capacity to move is very difficult. It has a tough time physically moving, but that's why it's good in Hypercrypt Legion, because it can teleport around. We have talked to some people about other terrain formats where they have shorter walls, and it becomes much better because it doesn't have to use that straddling. It can actually like move normally. But if it needs to, and it's in Hypercrypt, and you're using Cosmic Precision, it can uppy downy and just hop the terrain features and basically be placed wherever it wants to. You can't deploy it hanging off the board now. You can't do that because it hull measures. So your hull still has to be wholly on the table. You can put parts of your model that aren't used for measurement off the table, but you can't, this guy, because he's a non-walker, non-aircraft vehicle, he uses all parts of his model for measurement. So you can't overhang the table edge with him. Don't do that. Nobody do that. We did have to have that conversation with a player at one point, I think. On current UKTC maps, you can hide it turn 1? Really? It like straight up hides? That's amazing. Yeah, we were talking about physically being able to place it, but if you can place it and it's hiding, that's even better. Like, I'm not even gonna take damage? Sick. Let's go. I like big battle tanks, and I cannot lie. Indeed, chat. Doomsday Arc and the Riptide being the same points is just wild. Is it? I guess, like... I guess the Doomsday Arc... Or the Riptide has... Does the Riptide have more wounds? Riptide's at 14 wounds? It's got a better save characteristic, but worse attacks, right? Because they're both at 4+ invuln. Yeah, it's 14 wounds with a 4+. Is the Doomsday also 14, or is he 13? Maybe it's also 14. It is 14. Oh, it's lower toughness. So, oh, no, it's not. Just kidding. Riptide's T9? Huh. It's funny how similar these profiles are. If you look at these numbers, the numbers don't really change. You trade save for OC, basically. Riptide can fallback shoot and can get devastating wounds and ignores hit roll modifiers and has more guns. Doomsday's got the flares and his guns are better, but has a worse save. I don't know. It doesn't feel that crazy. It does feel like the Doomsday arc, I think, is on the whole maybe a little bit stronger. But there's also like a context there, right? It's hard to entirely compare units across faction because there's like so many other buffs going on. There's detachment abilities and things that one or the other has access to. Like Doomsday arcs don't have Kauyon. Could you imagine a Doomsday arc in Kauyon, chat? It's like, I'll shoot D6 shots. I got 9 hits. Like strength 14 devastating or whatever. Strength 20, what is their strength? Strength, I wound you on 3s, basically, regardless of what I'm shooting at. Strength 18. Oh, excuse me. I'll cut the difference. Strength 18. Yeah, Riptides always need 5s, unless you're in the lethal hits detachment. Unless you're in Monka, and then they need lethal hits. But they also get a flat number of attacks, right? Like, I think their guns are for different things, you know what I mean? I don't know. I do think it does feel like the Doomsday arc is like probably edges out. If you were to pit the two against each other, I bet the Doomsday arc would be on the whole more effective. But it doesn't feel like it's that crazy. All right, chat. Let's talk about Chaos Demons. Franco McDonald, undefeated with Chaos Demons this weekend. Not a result I was expecting. Look at this, by the way. Speaking of Riptides, look at that result. We dropped 23 points over the course of 5 games. Jesus. Tony Barrett. Hot diggity damn. Franco McDonald. Rocking 4 big boys and girls and they-thems. Be'lakor, Grand and Clean One with Endless Gift. Endless Ed over here. A Soul Stealer, Keeper of Secrets, plus Shalaxi. Oh boy, okay. A Nurgling unit, 1 Plague Bearer unit, a Beast of Nurgle, 3 units of Fiends, excuse me, and 2 units of Screamers. Now the Screamers are cool. I really like the Screamers because they are ridiculously fast. They are move 14 flying beasts. So they can go through walls, and they have that fast movement characteristic for 75 points. They're basically Hellions, chat. We're basically talking about Hellions here, but they have that Mortal Wound drive-by thing, which is good too. So they're incredibly strong utility units, just like running up and scoring. They're really, really good. The Fiends are interesting. We have a Slaanesh focus, so they're getting +1 AP a lot of times because they're going to be standing next to one of the Slaanesh Greater Demons. The Slaanesh Greater Demons can deep strike them out. They can Nesting Doll out the Fiends as well. And the Fiends are just good sort of infantry sweepers on top of that too. Medium infantry sweepers, especially once they go to AP3. Like once if you're a 3-up save and even Armor of Contempted, things get really, really scary for you. They're not as good at punching up, but they're only 35 points a model, so you're not that worried about it. So, just a solid utility list, I think, champ. We've got 2 super fast Greater Demons, the Grand and Clean One for holding mid-table objectives, plus Be'lakor to hop the army around. Seems pretty good, chat. I don't know. It's not quite as flashy as I'd like, but there is a Shalaxi Hellbane. There's very few flashier than a Shalaxi Hellbane, for sure. Screamers the same points as Hellions? Yeah, for sure. True Demon Lord. Hey, that's you! Congratulations on the 5-0, man. That's a cool list, dude. That's a good one. Well, chat, we have discussed the Coventry GT. Some good lists, some good discussion about Aquilons. I do think I am going to ramp up the stream there. We are going to talk about... We'll probably continue the discussion tomorrow because we got Tactical Tuesday. I think I might run Tactical Tuesday a little earlier tomorrow. I did see some people, last week we had a discussion about the timing. I did see some people say that they wanted to see some earlier streams. And I think what we'll do is we'll take a deeper dive into the results from this week tomorrow. So please come hang out with me over there. Otherwise, I'm going to be live in 2 hours over on Twitch. We're going to play some Wraith Lords. I got my 6 Wraith Lords lists. We're up my 6 Wraith Lords list. We're up against Orcs. Please come hang out with me over there. Twitch.tv/TacticalTortoise. Don't forget about that. Yeah, otherwise I will see you all tomorrow, chat. Don't forget as well, this weekend I'm going to be heading back down to Tampa, Florida, and I'm going to be at the Onslaught Gaming Teams event, the 8-man Teams event. So we're going to have 3 days of streaming, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all team games all the time. Please come hang out with me over there. And yeah. Otherwise, I'll see you then. Come hang out with me on Twitch. We're going to be live in just a couple hours. And then also, I'm going to be live tomorrow as well. So thanks, everyone, for hanging out. Hey, there's some people following. Appreciate that. And with that, chat, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Cheers, everyone.